The sun drips over the horizon like warm honey, thick and golden, pulling long shadows across the Nile's western bank. Somewhere in the reeds, a heron shakes off sleep with one leg still folded like an ancient puzzle. The air is soft minus heavy with the smell of silt, date palms, and that vague dusty sweetness only found in a civilization that's been composting its glory for 3,000 years. You're in Egypt now. Not the Egypt of postcards or mummies or bustling tour groups slapping sunscreen on their kids. No, you're in linen Egypt. Ironed linen Egypt. The Egypt of quiet courtyards and flat rooftops, where laundry snaps in the breeze like small, papiers minus thin flags. It's roughly 1500 BCE, give or take a few pharaohs. Now Tutankhamun today minus say she is busy being a teenager elsewhere. This story belongs to the people who live by the linen calendar rising with the sun, eating flatbread with the sun, and pressing their garments with hot stones once the sun had had its say. You eat it before you see it minus a gentle scrape, like a knife across toast. It's not toast, though. It's your neighbor down the alley, smoothing her linen tunic over a sandstone block. The heat from the morning rocks seeps through the fabric, coaxing out wrinkles, as if by divine negotiation. This is ironing ancient minus style. No steam, no starch, no but unlabeled synthetic blend. Just the sun, a warm slab of rock, and a culture that genuinely believed looking rumpled was an offense to the gods. You probably won't make it through this day. And that's okay. This isn't a sprint through pyramids or a crash course on dynasties. This is a slow, pressed, pre-minus dynastic kind of story. So if your eyes get heavy somewhere between the second ceremonial tunic and the fifth jar of natron, just know the pharaoh forgives you. Before we drift into some minus bleached alleys and temple laundry rooms, go ahead and tap the like button minus gently, like you're e-polishing a faience bead. And if you feel like it, let us know in the comments where you're listening from, and what time it is. It's oddly comforting, isn't it? Knowing someone in Oslo is yawning with you. Now let's ease into tonight's journey. Soft footsteps over clay floors and the whisper of linen drying on the line. You walk through the workers' quarter of Thebes barefoot, because sandals squeak and we can't have that. The street is quiet minus too early for the scribe, too late for the frogs. A child's reed bowl rolls lazily across the path. A rooster looks at you like you owe him money, and someone is already baking bread in a mud brick oven, the dough rising in rhythm with the slow wind off the river. The house you're approaching belongs to the FRU, a laundress by trade and gossip fountain by vocation. She irons linens for the temple priests. And by iron, we of course mean she presses them with sun-minus warmed stones wrapped in goat cloth, her arms as practiced as any bronze sculptor. Nifra's courtyard smells like so prudent ambition. She greets you with a look that says you're late, but at least you're clean. You nod because in this world, clean is currency. Especially among those who believe wrinkles in your tunic invite wrinkles in your soul. Nifra sets a piece of white linen on a flat sandstone slab. She doesn't just lay it down. She smooths it like a lover leaving a note. Then comes the stone minus surrounded flint, polished by years of use and possibly by a few arguments with her neighbor's cat. She presses it down with practiced care, moving it in slow circles, letting the sun's warmth do the real work. And yes, the Egyptians were obsessed with linen. To them, it was more than fabric. It was a spiritual insulator, a sign of order in a world filled with desert chaos. The Book of the Dead, wrapped in linen. A body for the afterlife. Wrapped in linen. Your third cousin's slightly inappropriate party outfit. Still linen. Always linen. The flax plant that made it all possible grew in neat rows along the Nile's moist edges, tended like it was sacred, harvested with blades sharper than some royal decrees. After soaking, beating, combing, spinning, and weaving, the final product was a cloth so fine that the richer classes wore layers so transparent, it made modern fashion seem downright modest. Now here's the peculiar bit: temple priests not only wore white linen, they had to wear freshly pressed, ritually clean linen every single day. Some changed outfits multiple times, minus like spiritual outfit influencers. And it was believed that wrinkled linen could disrupt sacred rituals, causing everything from minor curses to awkward silence in the prayer line. Historians still debate whether the stones were always heated deliberately or simply left to warm in the Egyptian sun. Either way, this was a full minus-time job. And me, FRU? She's booked through next week, with a waiting list that includes the high priests and the woman who claims her son is the reincarnation of Osiris. You reach for the stone and try your hand. It's heavier than it looks. Your arm muscles whimper slightly. You press it down and move it slowly over the fabric, watching as the creases give up like reluctant bureaucrats. It's not glamorous, but it's oddly satisfying, like ironing history itself. And just as you begin to feel the rhythm, a goat wanders into the courtyard. Of course, because nothing says sacred duty like a goat chewing on a linen sash. Nearfar sighs. You sigh. The goat sneezes. Somewhere nearby, a temple bell rings. The day officially begins. But for now, in this pocket of sunlit calm, a stone glides over linen, and the past lies as smooth and silent as the cloth beneath your hand. You follow Neafaru out into the street again, her arms full of freshly pressed linens, yours still mildly trembling from your single attempt at ancient ironing. The goat, after chewing the hem of your dignity, has moved on, probably to audition for priesthood. Anything's possible in this heat. The town is waking now. Doors creak open like sleepy eyelids. Women sweep dust off dust. A scribe clears his throat somewhere like HES about to invent bureaucracy. And just ahead, a vendor hawks figs with the confidence of someone who's never tasted a bad one. You pass a granary where a man is measuring grain with a notched stick. He waves at Neafaru, and she ignores him completely. Later, you'll find out they were briefly married during the Shimu festival, which involved more beer than paperwork. As you near the temple complex, the scale of linen obsession becomes clear. Workers are busy hanging sheets across long wooden frames, letting the sun bleach them whiter than the ego of a sun god. You're told these are purification sheets. They'll be used in rituals, wrapped around statues, or offered to deities in carefully folded bundles. One worker offers you a linen strip to fold. You try, but your modern instincts take over and you make a sock puppet. No one laughs. This is serious business. Linen, after all, was tied to the concept of Ma at the sacred balance of order, truth, and harmony. Just as a wrinkle could signal spiritual disorder, a perfectly folded sheet could symbolize universal peace. This is not hyperbole. This is theology, President pleaded. Here's your obscure tidbit for the day: some Egyptians perfumed their linen with incense smoke. They'd hang garments above burning myrrh or frankincense, so that their tunics carried the scent of sacred temples. Imagine your laundry day ending with your shirt smelling like a ceremony and a cinnamon stick. Not bad. You reach a side chamber used exclusively for royal laundry minus yes. That was a real thing minus and step inside. It's dim, cool, and stacked with woven baskets of pre-minus sorted linens, headcloths, kilts, sashes, and ceremonial aprons that could probably double as minimalist tapestries. A young attendant minus, barely old enough to tie his own sash minus, demonstrates how they polish linen using smooth conical stones and a sprinkling of natron water. It's spot ironing, pot alchemy, and entirely too much effort for someone who just wants to nap in something soft. Historians still debate whether this linen polishing technique was a form of prestige laundering or an early attempt at fabric softening. What's certain is that it created a sheen so luminous that even moonlight had competition. You watch the boy swirl his stone in elegant loops, and for a moment it looks like a ritual minus one where fabric and faith intertwine. The sound of linen brushing stone is hypnotic, like distant waves or the inside of a conch shell. You lean back against a pillar and let the sound wrap around you. Linen and stone, faith and fiber. A breeze stirs the fabric overhead. Somewhere outside, a heart begins to play minus soft, slow, possibly out of tune, but that only adds to the charm. You sit there for a while, the day stretching out like a sun minus warm tunic, the past unfolding one crease at a time. You wonder if anyone will ever iron your story smooth someday. Probably not. But that's okay. For now, there's linen. And sun. And the faint, ridiculous smell of incense clinging to your hair. The afternoon leans heavily on the shoulders of the city, like a cat curling up on a minus small shelf. The sun climbs higher, but it feels slower now minus lazier, as if even Ra himself is beginning to second minus guess the whole drag the sun across the sky everyday arrangement. You walk with me far you past rows of adobe houses whose walls are sun minus cracked like old parchment, and above you clotho signs zigzag between rooftops in an ancient game of linen ug minus of minus war. A woman on a roof is gently flopping a sheet in the breeze. It looks like a sail without a boat minus, except here, the river is heat, and the only voyage is to tomorrow. She nods at me for you and gives you a once minus over that suggests your tunic could use, let's call it, divine intervention. You pause in a shaded alcove, while Nia for you chats with a fellow laundress about the politics of pleats minus yes. There are opinions. You close your eyes and lean against a cool brick wall, listening to the low hum of bees near a fig tree and the distant clatter of pottery being sorted, broken, and rain minus sorted again. Life here is busy, but never in a hurry. Even the urgency has manners. A cart creaks past, piled high with damp flax stalks minus fresh from the river fields, smelling like pond water and possibility. The driver, an old man with a brow as folded as last year's linens, points to the bundle and says, "This is where it all begins." He might be talking about linen. He might also be talking about life. It's hard to tell with these poetic types. Now here's your one major historical fact for the sun minus drunk stretch of the day. Flax was one of Egypt's primary cultivated crops, and it was harvested with crescent minus shaped sickles lined with embedded flint teeth. Not exactly OSHA minus approved, but effective. The stalks were soaked for days minus fermented, actually minus in clape, each to loosen the fibers. Think of it as a kind of soggy spa for plants. Afterward, the fibers were beaten, combed, spun, and woven minus mostly by women. Though a few elite households hired specialist weavers who could produce linen so fine it was called woven air. Naturally, that meant it was extremely expensive and utterly impractical, which made it perfect for royal use. Your weird cultural tidbit for the hour. Linen was just used for clothes on ritual minus. It was also used as currency. High minus quality linen could be traded like silver or beer. So the next time you grumble about folding laundry, remember you're essentially handling ancient money, just less shiny. You walk past a courtyard where a young girl is hanging tiny tunics on a string. Her mother supervises with all the solemnity of a high priestess. Wrinkles, in this family, are a moral failure. The girl tugs at one corner to straighten a crease. It snaps gently in the wind minus, like a whisper of approval from the gods. You turn the corner, and there's a shop selling dyed linens. Yes, minus dyed. While most Egyptians favored the symbolic purity of white, certain bold souls ventured into hues pale saffron, muted indigo, sometimes even dusty rose. The dyes were plant-based, temperamental, and often patchy. Which is to say fashion-forward but stress-inducing. The shopkeeper holds up a swath of yellow linen and asks if you'd like to try it on. You politely decline. You're a more of a neutral palette person, spiritually speaking. A camel groans behind you, adding its opinion. Historians still debate whether the bold colors were worn daily or reserved for special ceremonies. Some murals suggested ash of color at feasts or festivals, while others argue they were symbolic of the afterlife minus where fashion, apparently, gets riskier. You trail behind Nia for you as she enters a courtyard filled with drying wax and gossip. Here, among the folds and the fluttering, you realize the city is stitched together by fabric. Not just walls or roads or monuments but linen. Threaded through every layer of life. Wrapping babies, swaddling gods, soaking up sweat and sacrifice alike. You run your hand over a hanging tunic. It's coarse, plain, workmanlike, but still neatly pressed. A breeze stirs the rack, and you're brushed by the ghost of someone's Tuesday. You find yourself inside one of the grander homes now. Not royal, but definitely linen wealthy. The walls are painted with lotus motifs. There's a faint perfume in the air jasmine, maybe, or just optimism. The kind of place where people fold napkins into shapes, even though napkins haven't technically been invented yet. You're here because Nia for you has a client, the wife of a mid-level priest, who thinks HES mid-level pharaoh. His wife is nicer if a little obsessed with symmetrical pleats. She greets you both with an approving nod and immediately begins adjusting your tunic tugging here. Smoothing there, muttering about hemlines like a linen therapist. She ushers you to the back courtyard where her linens are laid out in immaculate rows. She has a system, each square of fabric angled toward the sun just so, each corner weighted with small stones to prevent curling. You wonder how long this takes. She says, not long, in the voice of someone who clearly hasn't slept since the last lunar festival. Here's your historical fact: elite households often employed linen keepers staff members solely responsible for maintaining, pressing, and storing garments. There were even hieroglyphic titles for them: guardian of the robes, keeper of the folded cloth, which sounds suspiciously like job titles on a modern lifestyle blog. The lady explains her pressing method. Instead of stones, she uses rounded ceramic weights, heated near a cooking fire, wrapped in damp linen to avoid scorching. The weights are pressed onto fabric in sections, not unlike a cookie cutter with lofty goals. You try it. The fabric hisses faintly. It smells like steam and domestic pride. And now, your cultural tidbit in funerary traditions. Some linen was folded into specific geometric shapes believed to guard the body. Triangles, spirals, even early versions of stars. It was origami it was cosmology with corners. At the far end of the courtyard, a servant begins folding garments with frightening precision. His folding board is marked with lines ancient grid guides. Essentially, he claims it helps avoid fabric sins. You wonder if your laundry back home has been spiritually chaotic all along. Historians still debate whether these boards were standardized or improvised, but this man clearly has strong opinions and a folding technique that rivals time itself. As you sit on a low stool, sipping barley tea that's more barley than tea, you notice a peculiar thing: there's not a single wrinkle in sight. Not one. The tunics are flawless. The bedcloths are pressed. Even the cat looks ironed. The priest's wife tells you, in a hushed voice, that she once dreamed of folding linens for the queen. But then she married for love. And linen. Mostly linen. You nod slowly and glance at Nia for you, who is deep in conversation about fleet maintenance during flood season. You try not to doze, but the warmth, the soft hum of fabric rustling in the wind, and the slow ballet of folding gestures all conspire against your wake of signals. You lean your head against the cool stone wall. A linen sash falls from the drying rack and lands gently on your shoulder, like the world's softest blessing. Even the breeze seems folded now. You're walking again, of course. Because everyone walks in this world minus feet on sun minus warmed clay, eyes half minus slitted from heat, and minds occupied with the urgent politics of hem-stitching. Nefer walks beside you, one arm cradling a bundle of pressed linen wrapped in a reed mat. It's not for a priest this time. It's for a wedding, which, in this village, means double linen, double gossip. You duck beneath a low wood unlintel into a courtyard, shaded by date palms and loud with excitement. Women chatter while sitting on mats, hands busy with folds, beads, and ceremonial trim. Someone is sewing a sash with what looks suspiciously like real gold thread. Someone else is muttering about how the bride's family is showing off again. You settle near the outer edge, out of the folding zone, and watch. The bride's mother is supervising the wrapping of ceremonial garments. These are no ordinary tunics minus, these are multi-minus layered, carefully pleated, and perfumed with crushed lotus petals. There's even a long rectangular veil, pressed so flat, it could be used as a scroll. Major historical fact, incoming marriage in ancient Egypt was a state affair with paperwork and legal contracts. It was more of a social agreement, made public by sharing a home, a meal, and sometimes a new wardrobe. The elite, of course, liked to overdo it minus, so weddings became linen showcases. A good dowry included finely pressed garments, proving you came from people who knew how to fold their lives neatly. Nearby, a girl no older than 10 is trying to master the double minus fold diagonal wrap. Chess failing gloriously. Her older sister rolls her eyes, takes over, and finishes it in 5 elegant gestures. You pretend not to notice that you were secretly rooting for the underdog. Cultural tidbit time: some families believed folding linen in certain patterns would tie fortune into the marriage. Others avoided knots entirely, fearing they'd detrap in happy spirits. One old woman here insists that diagonal folds invite twins. You're not sure if that's a blessing or a warning. A small boy runs past, tripping over a linen bundle, and earns a scolding from a woman who seems to possess the power of withering glances. He pouts, but into seconds he is smiling again, stuffing a fig into his mouth and chewing like the world has never known sadness. Nefer demonstrates her technique for the bridal sash minus slow, patient turns, edges aligned with the devotion of temple architecture. You try to mimic it and end up creating something that looks vaguely like a towel animal. No one says anything, but the bride's grandmother smirks in your general direction. Historians still debate whether specific folding techniques had actual symbolic meaning, or whether people just did what looked nice. Some scholars claim the folds mimicked papyrus patterns, others say it was a way to communicate social status. Either way, people back then minus, much like people now minus, judged you by your creases. The bride finally arrives, her hair braided and crowned with a circlet of blue glass beads. Chess, radiant, nervous, slightly overdressed for the heat. Her mother wraps her in layers of sheer linen, each piece pressed and pleated with such care it feels like a ritual of armor. You watch her face settle into calm. Then you hear it minus the low thrum of hand drums, the first call of wedding song rising like warm wind through the palms. People start gathering linens, baskets, folding boards. The ceremony is about to begin. You back away slowly, quietly, like a dream that knows when it's not the main character. As you leave, you catch one last glimpse of the bride, just adjusting her veil. A crease appears. She smooths it out with a single practiced motion. She'll be fine. You're back at the river now, because all stories eventually drift downstream. The Nile is calm, wide, and gently indifferent to your presence minus, as if it's seen too many empires to care about your dusty sandals and second-minus-rate folding skills. The sun hangs low, glazing the water in sheets of molten linen light. You sit on a rock, not unlike the ones used for pressing fabric, and let the breeze press against your skin like a living thing. Around you, the riverbank hums with activity. Women rinse flax. Children chase frogs. A fisherman nearby sings to himself in a key only he understands. And just to your left, a girl is ironing linen with a flat, sun-warmed pebble minus no ritual, no incense, just the practical press of life. Here's your historical fact for the riverside moment: Egyptians bathed in the Nile not just to clean themselves, but to purify. Ritual cleanliness was part of religious life minus especially for priests, who bathed multiple times a day and sometimes shaved every hair on their body to avoid impurity. Cleanliness was just next to godlines. It was godlines. That explains the linen, too. The whiter and cleaner your linen, the closer you were to spiritual alignment. Some even believe dirty garments can invite illness or misfortune, which means your laundry hamper might technically be cursed. Today's obscure tidbit: wealthy Egyptians had servants who specialized in laundering and pressing, but they also had specific linen storage rituals. Folded garments were kept in reed chests lined with sweet-smelling herbs like cinnamon, mint, or crushed pine. Some even buried spare tunics with them for the afterlife, just in case eternity had formal wear requirements. A water bird lands nearby, shakes itself off like it's clocking out for the day, and settles into a fluffy puddle of feathers. You wish you could do the same. Nefer arrives a few minutes later, carrying a bundle of damp flax. She sits beside you, legs folded, eyes on the horizon. Neither of you speaks for a while. There's a comfort in shared silence and letting the water talk instead. When she finally does speak, it's to point out a wrinkle in your tunic. You look down. There it is. A modest crease, harmless, but apparently offensive enough to receive a raised eyebrow. She hands you a stone smooth, warm, sympathetic. You try to press it out, gently, slowly. Historians still debate whether ancient Egyptians ironed their linen every single day, or just on special occasions. But judging by Nefer's face, the answer is yes, and you should be ashamed of yourself. As the sun dips behind a thicket of papiers, the world goes soft. Not dark, not dim, just hushed. Linen flutters on the line behind you. The river sighs. You think you hear someone singing again, but it might just be the wind folding through the reeds. You press the crease once more, this time with care. Not for fashion, not even for faith, but because it feels right to smooth something out, even for a moment. Evening stretches its long limbs across the land, dipping its fingers into every courtyard, alleyway, and folding board. The sun is setting like it knows it's being watched slowly, dramatically, as if it wants you to remember it this time. Shadows crawl up the mud brick walls, casting soft trinkles on surfaces that, up until now, had stayed obediently smooth. You walk behind Nefer, who hums a tune that has no words but still manages to feel older than language. Her bundle is smaller now just a few folded tunics, the last of the day's deliveries. Yours? Well, let's just say your hands smell like wet flax and your shirt looks like it was pressed with a papyrus scroll into prayer. She leads you into an area near the temple complex. Not the main gates, with their grandeur and guards, but a side path only the linen privileged seem to know. The ground here is swept clean, the air faintly tinged with sandalwood and sweat. A boy sprints past, balancing a folded cloth stack on his head like HES in training for the world's least competitive Olympic sport. Tonight, you're visiting the temple launders. Yes, launders. The high priests don't press their own tunics, That would be chaos. This quiet enclave is where ceremonial garments are washed, dried, perfumed, and pressed. A team of linen keepers, all women, all slightly terrifying, tend to the cloth like it's sacred scripture. And in many ways, it is. These are the wrappings of ritual, the very fabric of devotion. Literally. Here's your historical fact. Major temples often had dedicated linen rooms where garments were stored, sorted, and prepped for ritual use. Some records even list inventories of hundreds of garments categorized by type, color, and number of pleats. There were temple staff whose entire job was simply to count linen, which either sounds dull or weirdly satisfying depending on how your day's been. A stern Midas-faced woman greets you at the entrance. She looks at me, FRU nods. She looks at you, frowns, then gestures toward a low bench where an older priest's robe waits to be folded. The fabric is nearly translucent, thin as silence, and almost just as heavy with expectation. You watch as FRU spritzes the robe lightly with rose water and smooths it between two polished ceramic tiles. She rolls it carefully, not folded, because apparently that's how the senior priests like it, like a scroll, not a sandwich. Your cultural tidbit for this twilight moment: some priests believed that folding a robe into squares could trap energy, so they preferred it loosely rolled, allowing divine breath to pass through. Others believed rolling would anger the gods and insisted on flat, open storage. Historians still argue about this, though one paper describes a priest being scolded for a careless corner. Yes, ancient workplace drama. As the robe is wrapped and placed into a reed chest, another priest walks in, bare chested, shaved, holding what might be a towel or a garment. It's hard to tell in this light. He nods politely, steps behind a screen, and drops the linen with all the reverence of someone throwing their car keys on the counter. Everyone flinches. A laundry offense has been committed. The stern woman mutters something about creased offerings under her breath and retrieves the cloth with the same disgust you'd reserve for lukewarm tea. Historians still debate whether temple laundering practices were spiritual obligations or simply rituals of class performance. But here now, it feels like both. Every fold says something. Every wrinkle risks offense. You're handed a folded cloth to carry back to the entrance. It's light, like birth itself. You cradle it like a newborn cloud. The air is cooler now. Linen flaps gently on rooftop lines. Someone singing again, possibly that same fisherman with his eternal solo. You step into the street, cloth still in your hands, and realize the world is wrapped in something soft tonight. And none of it is accidental. The stars arrive one by one, like they're checking in for the night shift. The sky is velvet, now deep and slow, with the occasional rustle of palm fronds and the warm glow of oil lamps in windows. Somewhere, a cat owls like it's been personally wronged by the moon. You're sitting in first courtyard again. This time on a reed mat that was probably pressed earlier for exactly this purpose. She's lighting a small clay lamp, the kind with a flickering flame that doesn't light much but insists on being poetic. A bowl of lentils sits nearby, cooling in the air. You've been offered a seat, a meal, and the responsibility of not spilling anything on freshly folded fabric. A few neighbors wander in, an older man with a walking stick he doesn't seem to need, to women holding baskets of unfolded dreams, and a boy who might be someone's nephew or just a regular guest. They sit, they talk, they fold. Yes, they fold for fun. It's an evening ritual in this part of the quarter, after the temple linens are delivered, after the food is simmered, after the sun has done its duty. People gather, gossip, and fold linen like it's a form of storytelling. And maybe it is. Every pleat a memory. Every crease a conversation. Historical fact of the evening folding cloth at the end of the day was seen not only as a chore but as an act of gratitude. Some homes even had a short prayer said while folding a thank you for the day. The fabric, the hands to hold it. No fanfare. just a whisper into cotton silence. Tonight's cultural curiosity in some homes, linen was folded in sequence with the stars. First cloth with the appearance of the evening star, then another with Orion's belt. It was less about astronomy and more about rhythm minus a way of aligning the night with something cosmic. One fold for Venus, one for rest. You try folding with the group. You're getting better. Your edges are cleaner. Nef you raises an eyebrow in approval, which in her emotional scale is practically applause. The old man shares a joke about a priest who wore his tunic inside out during festival and blamed it on divine confusion. You all laugh in the quiet way. Only tired people laugh. Mine is soft and slow, like warm bread being torn apart. Historians still debate whether these folding circles were widespread or localized customs. There's no formal record, just hints in wall art and oral tradition. But tonight, it feels ancient and necessary, like brushing your soul before bed. As you fold, you feel your own thoughts beginning to crease into calmness. The day which once felt dusty and full now folds neatly into memory. A flap here, a corner there. It all fits somehow. A breeze carries the scent of sesame and river air. Somewhere a dog barks at nothing. The lamp flickers one last time and dies with a sigh. No one bothers to relight it. The stars are bright enough now. You lie back on the mat, eyes tracing the soft shape of the moon. You wonder briefly if it too is wrapped in linen. Morning arrives without hurry. It doesn't crash in. It sort of creaks, like a door slowly opening onto another linen-minus-filled day. The sky is pale and undecided, the kind of color that still smells like dew. You're awake, though you're not entirely sure why. Minus perhaps it was the rooster. Perhaps it was the dream about folding laundry in front of an angry god. You stretch, roll to your side, and there it is, your tunic, folded neatly next to you, freshly pressed. Nefer, you must have done it while you slept. It's a silent kindness. The kind you don't talk about because if you do, it might trinkle. You dress, smooth the collar just to be safe, and step outside into the morning hush. Most of the city is still asleep, except for the linen keepers. Of course, they're already up, already folding, already chasing after a universe that refuses to sit still. Today's first destination is the Weaver's Quarter. You walk with Nef through narrow alleys where the walls are close enough to kiss. The buildings lean into each other like sleepy relatives. Up ahead, you can hear the rhythmic clack of looms minus the sound of civilization being rebuilt, one thread at a time. Here's your major historical fact: the Egyptians invented vertical looms as early as the Old Kingdom. These massive wooden frames allowed multiple weavers to work together, producing longer lengths of linen with surprising uniformity. The threads were made from flax fibers, twisted with a drop spindle or by hand. No motors, just patience, fingers, and a prayer to whatever deity oversaw not prevention. You duck into a weaving hall. Inside, it's warm and hushed, like stepping into a giant cocoon. The air smells of raw flax and cedarwood. Women sit on stools, threading shuttles back and forth, their faces calm with focus. A child sneezes. No one looks up. You're offered a seat and a chance to try. You do. You fail. Impressively. Your fingers catch. Your shuttle jams. You tangle the weft. The weaver next to you pats your arm, like you've just attempted a haiku and accidentally some undrain. Cultural curiosity for the day: some weavers believed in thread luck. If your first spool of the day broke, you were in for a hard time. So they do whisper to their yarn or sing to their loom. You watch as a woman leans and unhums to her shuttle before sending it across the warp. It hums back. Or maybe that's just your imagination. Historians still debate how standardized the weaving patterns were, minus some say their worst rigged motifs, passed down like recipes. Others believe it was more intuitive, depending on the weaver's hands, memory, and mood. You like that idea? Mood minus weaving. Emotional fabric. Existential thread work. A shout from outside breaks the trance. A new flax delivery. Bundles are tossed into the courtyard. Still wet from the river, still clinging to yesterday. The weavers sigh in unison. More work. More thread. More cloth. As you leave, one of them presses a folded square of linen into your hand. For luck, she says. Or for wiping sweat. Depends on your day. You nod, tuck it into your belt, and step back into the morning sun. It's brighter now. The walls aren't leaning anymore, minus they're standing tall. And so are you. Kind of. You find yourself wandering toward the Mbamros district. Not on purpose. Let's be clear, this wasn't on your morning itinerary. But linen has a long memory, and some of it ends up here. The air is different in this part of the city. Thicker. Heavier. Like it's been folded too many times and now carries the weight of what was once whispered into it. You pass stalls selling natron in little clay pots. Perfumed oils. Amulets shaped like beetles and birds and other creatures that seem entirely too wise. Everything here smells ancient, minus even the bread, which somehow carries the scent of incense and quiet resignation. Nia for you walks with you, slower now. More contemplative. She doesn't press linens for the dead, but she knows those who do. You're meeting one of them today. Her name is Citra. Chest older than Stolen, twice as sharp. She works in a quiet workshop near the edge of the necropolis, where the tombs crouch like sleeping thoughts. Her hands are stained with resin, her hair tied in a cloth wrap so neatly folded it could win awards. She doesn't say much at first. Just gestures for you to sit, hands you a bundle of linen strips, and raises an eyebrow. You get the message fold. Here's your historical fact. Heavy and hushed linen was central to Egyptian mummification. Bodies were wrapped in hundreds of meters of cloth minus layered, perfumed, inscribed. Some strips contained prayers. Others bore protective symbols. The process could take weeks or days, depending on budget and belief. You begin folding. These strips are thinner, lighter. They feel like memories, like the difference between a voice and an echo. Citra shows you the angle needed for a proper shoulder wrap. It's not a simple spiral minus, it's a careful overlap, like a rosin folding in reverse. She mumbles about someone last week who folded against the grain. Now his afterlife will be drafty. Your cultural tidbits of Mbamos included one final wrap across the mouth to ensure silence in the afterlife. Not as punishment minus, more like peace. A way to prevent gossip beyond the grave. You fold that one especially gently. Historians still debate whether the linen used in mummification was new or recycled. Some evidence suggests elite burials used cloth from temple offerings. Others hint at reused household garments minus wrapping your soul that once touched your life. You glance at a shelf, nearby minus dozens of bundles, carefully labeled. Uncle, one says. Trader, says another. Cat, says a third. You don't ask. Outside, the wind kicks up a handful of dust, scattering it like a breath over the stone path. Citra finishes her wrap demonstration, sets the linen down, and finally smiles. You fold well, she says. For someone still breathing. High praise. You bow. Or try to. It comes out as an awkward half-minus squat that probably offends multiple gods. As you leave, you carry a folded linen strip in your hand. Not for the dead. Not yet. But maybe for remembering. For softening the edges of a world that doesn't always offer smooth corners. It's midday now, and the sun has decided to fully commit to being unbearable. You and Nefer, you have taken shelter beneath a crooked fig tree whose shadow is doing its best impersonation of actual shade. A jug of barley water sweats beside you, and every sip feels like you're e-bribing your own body to continue existing. The day's folding is mostly done. The deliveries are complete. And for the moment, no one is asking anything of you minus not even your tunic, which has finally earned a small crease and looks rather proud of it. Across the path, an old man is repairing sandals. Next to him, his wife is folding linen napkins with military precision, despite the fact that no one here knows what a napkin is in the modern sense. They use linen cloths for wiping fingers, wrapping food, covering heads, and on occasion swatting flies with unexpected dignity. Here's your historical fact for this sun drunk our linen washed only a garment material. It was used in everything from sails to scrolls to surgical bandages. Ancient Egyptian physicians used linen strips to bind wounds, make slings, and even stuff into cavities filled with healing herbs. Yes, linen went everywhere, including places you'd rather not visualize. The couple across from you begins folding a large piece of dyed linen unusual in this town of whites and neutrals. It's a soft coral red, faded at the edges. You ask where it came from. The woman says, "My mother dyed it with madder root and pomegranate skins." She said it kept away bad dreams. A cultural tidbit. Then some families dyed a single cloth and reed and kept it above the bed to ward off nightmares. Red, in many Egyptian beliefs, was the color of both danger and protection like a spiritual stop sign. Some also tied small reed linen strips to amulets, believing the color would wake up the charm. You watch her fold it slowly, deliberately, the same way you might fold a story before placing it back on a shelf. Nefer hands you another cloth this one new, unpressed. She raises an eyebrow. It's a test. You set it on your lap. The creases are wild. The corners rebellious. It's linen with an attitude. But you smooth it once. Twice press down with your palms like you're reconvincing it to behave. And then slowly you begin to fold. The process is quiet. Meditative. The world shrinks to fabric and fingers. Even the wind holds its breath. When you finish, it's not perfect, but it's tidy. The cloth lies still. Nefer nods once, as if you've passed some invisible rite. Historians still debate whether linen folding techniques were formally taught or passed down informally through generations. There are no linen academies. No scrolls of pleading. Just mothers, daughters, neighbors, and the occasional stranger under a fig tree. You stretch your back. The sun shifts. Somewhere, a dog barks at a jug. Time moves like molasses down a slanted table. And for the first time today, you're not thinking about the heat, or the walk, or even the next fold. You're just here. Evening again. Somehow, you blink, and the light has turned to gold. The shadows stretch and soften, like linen that's been worn 100 times and knows all the good spots to rest. You and Nefer are walking along the canal now one of the smaller ones, winding past gardens and tiny reed huts. The water gurgles gently, chasing the moon's reflection like it's trying to smooth it out. You're headed toward the laundry fields. Yes, fields. These are wide-open plots near the edge of the city, where the temple laundresses come not to press, but to bleach. Rows of linen stretch across wooden frames. Others lie flat on the ground, soaked in a solution of natron water and sun. The scent is sharp, clean, slightly metallic like the air after a lightning storm, if the lightning wore perfume. Your historical fact: under the stars Egyptians used natron, a naturally occurring salt mix, to clean and whiten their linens. It acted as a disinfectant and deodorizer. Natron was sacred minus. It preserved bodies and brightened tunics. It was laundry and legacy in one grainy pinch. A laundress greets Nia for you with a grin and tosses you a wet cloth. Lay it flat, she says. You do. You try. The wind catches the edge. It flips. You chase it. It flips again. The cloth is winning. Eventually, you pin it down with a smooth pebble and sit beside it, mildly defeated. Neophayu lays her cloth next to yours with the practiced grace of someone who never loses a fight to laundry. Cultural curiosity for this moment, some workers believed that bleach minus cleaning under a full moon would give the linen added purity. Others thought it would invite spirits to sleep in the fabric. So they left amulets nearby minus small charms or reeds tied in knots. You see one now, near the far corner of the field. A little bird minus shaped token tucked under a stone. The wind shifts. The linens flap softly in a slow, rolling wave. The sound is mesmerizing, like a whisper moving across pages. Or maybe prayer. Neophayu lies back in the grass, her arms behind her head. You do the same. The sky above is deep blue velvet, dusted with stars. The moon is rising, pale and polite. You both watch the cloth ripple under its glow. Some of these will be temple garments. Some will wrap newborns. Some might never be worn minus, just folded and stored, kept for moments that haven't arrived yet. Historians still debate whether these night minus bleaching rituals were practical or spiritual. But sitting here on the edge of the city, you start to think it doesn't matter. Because sometimes a fold is just a fold. And sometimes it's a quiet place to put your heart. The final days of any journey tend to stretch and shrink at the same time. Each moment feels longer, somehow fuller minus, but you also sense the edge of something drawing near. A kind of fold at the end of time. This morning, the wind carries more chill than usual. Not cold, just careful. Like it's asking permission to blow. You walk with Neophayu through the quieter parts of town, where shutters are still drawn and the only sound is the scrape of a broom brushing dust into fresh shapes. You're headed to the archive. No, not a temple, not a place of worship minus an actual linen archive. Yes, such a thing exists. You'd expected scrolls, stone, maybe some stern minus faced guards. What you find instead is a sunlit courtyard surrounded by shelves of folded cloth. Each bundle is wrapped in a thin reed mat, tied with color minus coded threads, and labeled in ink. They're not laundry. They're records. Your historical fact for today, linen, was sometimes used as a writing surface before papiers. Especially in sacred or administrative contexts, ink was applied to tightly woven linen strips, then rolled or folded and stored. These cloth documents could outlast generations minus, especially when sealed in dry places, safe from flame and curiosity. Amen greets Neophayu and nods to you. Hes, the keeper of this cloth library. His robe is impossibly white. His fingers are stained black from ink and time. He pulls down a bundle, untees it, and carefully unfolds a square of linen. It's covered in neat lines of writing minus names, inventories, prayers, maybe recipes, though you're warned not to read the ones written in blue ink. They bite, he says. You assume that's a joke. You hope it's a joke. Today's cultural curiosity, some households kept linen letters between family members. Folded and perfumed, they were passed hand to hand, sometimes sewn into garments or tucked under pillows. One surviving example includes a shopping list, a love note, and a passive minus aggressive comment about fish prices minus, all on the same cloth. You handle a few pieces yourself. The fabric feels different when it carries language. Heavier, like it remembers every hand that's touched it. The keeper shows you a cloth with nothing on it minus no ink, no fold lines, no labels. This one's waiting, he says. for a story worth keeping. You sit there for a while between shelves in silence, running your fingers over woven history. You wonder what will be written on your days. You wonder if you'd fold them the same way. Outside, the sun tilts across the wall. A child runs past with a crooked kite made of scrap linen, trailing a tale of old prayers. You and you leave with a quiet nod. No souvenirs. Just the sound of cloth whispering stories to itself. Your last afternoon is spent in the dye house. A place as colorful as it is chaotic. Here, linen is transformed minus washed in vats of blue, red, yellow, and the occasional mysterious green that no one admits to mixing. The air smells of crushed berries, burnt husks, and dreams that didn't quite rinse out. You're immediately splashed by a passing apprentice. She apologizes with a grin and offers you a smock. It's too small and smells like vinegar and victory. Neopharu dives in like chess returning to a childhood memory. She ties up her robe, grabs a linen sash, and dips it into a vat of indigo with the care of someone baptizing a cat. Today's historical fact-dyeing linen was notoriously difficult. Unlike wool, which soaks up pigment like a gossip in a barbershop, linen resists color. It has to be scoured, boiled, soaked, and coaxed into cooperation. Indigo was one of the few dyes that took well minus, and even then, it required multiple dips and oxidation in sunlight to set the color. The dyed linens are strung across wide lines stretched like harp strings over the yard. They drip slowly, the colors deepening as they breathe. Someone plays a flute nearby, off minus key but sincere. Your cultural curiosity, some believe dyed linens held different energies. Red for protection, blue for calm, yellow for clarity. A mother might tuck a strip of blue cloth into her child's bed. A traveler might tie a red thread around his ankle. One superstitious fisherman even dyed his nets pink to confuse the fish. It did not work, but the fish appreciated the effort. Yuri handed a plain sash and told to choose your color. You hesitate. Then dip it into the saffron vat minus rich and golden, like morning remembering how to smile. It comes out uneven. A little patchy. A little perfect. Neopharu holds it up to the light. Like the sun. But braver. You pin it to the drying line and watch the wind lift it gently, like a farewell wave that has decided who it's for. As evening falls, the dyed linens glow like lanterns in the breeze. Your smock is stained in 3 shades of hope. And your hands, for the first time in days, carry nothing but color. You wake on your final morning in linen Egypt with the odd sensation of missing a place you haven't even left yet. The world around you is quiet, but not in the empty way, minus more like a room that's just been tidied. Soft. Intentional. Folded. Neopharu meets you by the river. She's already working, of course minus wringing out cloth from a rinse, setting it to dry across smooth stones that remember the press of centuries. She doesn't greet you with words. She just hands you a folded tunic and a piece of bread wrapped in fig leaf. The message is clear: today will be simple. And it is. You walk through the quarter one last time, nodding to the weavers, waving at the archive keeper who pretends not to wave back. The boy with the crooked linen kite has fixed it minus well, sort of. Now it leans left instead of right. Progress. You and Neopharu visit the temple courtyard, where the priest's garments are laid out like offerings. You help her fold one last robe, this one for a festival to be held in 3 days. You won't be there, of course, but your fold will be. Your historical fact: large festivals in ancient Egypt often required hundreds of linen garments, many of them worn once and then offered to temples or reused for burials. The wealthiest cities had entire storehouses just for festival linen minus, each piece pressed, recorded, and sealed away with the same reverence one might give to a sacred text. In the corner of the courtyard stands a cart with bundles of cloth, ready to be transported upriver. One bundle is tied with blue thread. Neafaru taps it. That one's yours. You blink. Mine? She shrugs. You folded half of it. It's true. You did. Over the past days, one crease at a time. Here's your last cultural tidbit. Some families stored a piece of guest minus folded linen for good luck. Cloth touched by travelers was believed to carry blessings from far minus off gods. Or, at the very least, better stories. You walk back to her house slowly. You pass the fig tree. The dye house. The goat who now looks at you with a kind of grudging respect. You pass the reed mat where you first sat. And the stone where you pressed your first stubborn wrinkle. Back in the courtyard, Neafaru Auntie's assassin hands it to you. It's the golden one from the dye house. The one you thought was patchy. Keep it, she says. It matches your folding style. You laugh. It's the kind of laugh that knows it's also a goodbye. Then, with a final nod, she turns back to her linens, already halfway through another day. You don't say much. You fold the silence neatly and take it with you. And now, dear traveler of folds and fibers, your journey winds to its end. The city hums on without you, soft in sun minus dappled. The linen lines still flutter in the breeze, and somewhere minus, probably by the river minus, someone is smoothing out a stubborn crease, muttering softly about sunlight and symmetry. The cloth remembers you. The folds do too. Above, the stars begin their slow parade across the desert sky, quiet and dependable, like stitches across an ever-minus-sending seam. The moonlight lays gently over rooftops and drying racks, over kites and cats, over the courtyard where you once pressed your thumb into damp linen and called it progress. You walk now through memory, not stone, down alleyways of thought, past courtyards of breath. Your tunic is soft against your skin, warm from the sun, worn from gentle work. It carries no wrinkles, only rest. Somewhere a reed flutes eyes into the night. You follow it, not with your feet, but with your breathing minus slower now, steadier. The kind of breath that folds into itself and doesn't ask to be unfolded again. This is where the linen story ends. No monuments, no kings, just threatened hands, sullen patience. And maybe that's enough. Maybe the quiet work of folding something minus anything minus is its own kind of prayer. So let your thoughts lie flat now. Let your mind crease into stillness. Let your body soften into sleep. You are already folded in. Good night.